Hi, my name is Kate. Welcome back to my channel. This tutorial is going to be on the knitted hem, and it goes with the Nova pattern that I am in the process of putting together. So the knitted hem is something that I have encountered myself before, primarily in hats, for making a nice sturdy hat band. You could do it in a skirt if you were knitting a skirt to give it a nice waistband. Do it as cuffs on mittens or things like that. What it does is allow you, so what you do is you start by knitting the inside, and then at some point you're going to fold it over and combine it with the outside and keep doing the outside, or you may knit the whole thing that way and have a totally reversible object. So we just have a hem, so we're just going to get that. So the hem and the cuff have been knit. This Latvian braid here is the fold point. So what you do is you basically fold it. Most patterns I've seen have a point at which you're supposed to fold. So there's a picot edge or an eyelet edge or a garter stitch ridge or something that is the marker for where you're supposed to fold. And you want the same number of stitches on both sides, or roughly the same number of stitches on both. So we're gonna just kind of turn this guy inside and unroll it a bit. Try to get it a little bit even just to make it easier when we go. And then we go back to our front edge, and what we're looking for that is the first stitch of the round. So normally with something like this, if I wasn't going to be looking for that first stitch, I would have knit this tail in. You can still do that, but it does make it a little bit harder to find your first stitch, so I just like to leave it. So here's my first stitch. So we're gonna go, this is what we're gonna use. There's a little friend at the very beginning. Okay. So what you could do if you were doing this, you could have knit this as a provisional cast on and just taken that out and slipped all those stitches onto another needle, held those together and knit them together. That's perfectly fine. Lots of people, that's a great way to do it. I didn't do that and don't want to do that. What I'm going to do is pick up the stitches from that initial round and knit them together with the stitches on the needle. You can do it with the needle tips, especially if you have nice sharp points, but I prefer to have another implement handy to do that with. A lot of the time I actually just use one of these blunt point darning needles. Could use just a DPN or a small crochet hook. I have been using this guy for a lot of stuff lately, so it happened to be out, so you could use something like that. I'm going to use this guy though. So what I want him to do is I'm going to figure out which parts of the stitch I want to pick up, and in general we're going to go a little further in because the first stitch is a bit wonky. What I want to pick up is this. So if we look at it, we've actually got two loops. There's two things. We can separate them out on my needle. See, there's two. Can you see that? There we go. There's two pieces, the two legs of that stitch I want to pick up. I look at it from the front. It's going to pull like that. See? Oops, let's see if we can focus. There we go. It looks like that, and when I'm pulling it from the back, which is mostly where I'm going to see it from, it looks like this. So that's what we want. So I'm going to do that over here. First stitch, again, always a bit on the wonky side. So I basically just go in that big gap where the first stitch is, and then I slip that onto the needle that I'm going to be working with. A couple things as we get started. My stitch marker fell off, so I'm just going to put it back on. This tail, just tuck it inside. It's going to go away. You're not going to worry about it. Once you've found where you're at, you're going to tuck it in. This whole thing's going to be sealed off, so your tail doesn't really need any other special attention. The other thing is, with this yarn that we're not using, we're going to carry it through this row because this row is just knit with the white color. What you want to do is put it off to the right if you are right-handed and going around in the traditional knitting fashion. I usually hold that yarn on the left for knitting stranded, but if you hold it to the left, you will actually get it caught inside, and we don't want to do that. So we're just going to put it here, and then on the last stitch, we'll just pull it through, and it'll be no big deal. So right now, we have, this is what it looks like on my needle. I've got those two loops I just picked up, and this one. And I'm going to, where's my friend here? My working yarn, I'm going to knit that together. Ta-da! And then we're going to go find the next two, like that, so that you've got that there, got it like that, slip it there, and just knit those two together. Sometimes I will forget to knit it together and I will just pick them up and start knitting them and then go, oh wait, that's wrong, just slip them back off and do them again. You can also just pick them up like this. So I could pick them up with my needle tip, but I find, as you can see right now, that I struggle more with that. I'm not having any luck. I find because I'm trying to pull and either one of these is going to pull the fabric a little bit, if I do this, the fabric is loose and I don't need to worry about pulling. And it's a little bit easier to just maneuver it and make sure that I'm not splitting the plies so that I'm going to get it nice and pretty. So we're going to do a few of these and then I'll show you what it looks like on the inside. And you just go all the way around. You've started with the same number of, in this pattern, we start with the same number of stitches and we work the cuff in the same number of stitches. So you don't have to worry about what's going on. Just pick up the next set of loops and knit them with the next one and you will have a matching number. If you started with the right stitch, that tail is a good marker, or if you decide to weave it in, I would put one of these removable stitch markers just through that stitch so you can find it easily. If you've got that going on, it's not going to get twisted or wonky. It might pucker a little bit because their tension is going to be slightly different with your stranded than it is with just the plain stockinette, but it doesn't create any major concerns for it, and you don't have to worry about counting like I need to knit two together, then knit one, then whatever. You're just picking up a stitch next to it. So what I can see here, I can see this is the one I've already knit. See how I can see that stuff's already gone through it? So even though it looks like maybe this is the next one, I've already knit it. So what I need to do is go to then one after it. So that's the next one that hasn't been knit, right there. So I push through there, and knit it. Okay, so then we can do the same thing. You can always see because your tail will come through one and that one's going to be raised because you just knit through it. So it's always going to look like it's the one that you want, but you don't. You want the next one. So you go over one and pick it up. So there's your one. So there it is. Sometimes it can be easiest to see from this side, so there we go. We just go, because we've got those two loops, we're just going to pick them up. This is how I do it. There may be other ways to do it, other parts of the stitch that people pick up. I do this. I like the way it looks on the inside, and I like the fact that it's nice and easy to replicate all the way around, and I'm not scrambling to figure out which piece I should be picking up. There we go. And sometimes you split up, like when you're initially trying to grab it, you're going to find that the plies start to split or you're picking up extra pieces. That's okay, just take your time and find the hole. So there you can see, two loops and a hole, and put your needle in. So it is time consuming. It does take a little bit of time to do, but it looks really neat and it is worth the effort, and it's a nice little skill to have. I've used this edge, like I said, hats mostly, but I've also done it on a tea cozy, and I just like the way it gives you a nice firm edge, nice and neat. Anyway, so there's our other one picked up. If you are doing this and you so choose, because we're closing off the hem, you don't have to be as delicate with your floats. You still want to keep track of them and make sure that they're catching nicely in order to maintain your tension, but you're not going to be worried about them catching on anything on the inside because there's not going to be exposed. So again, here's the one that's popping up first. That's the one that we've already done because there's a tail through it. The white yarn's a little hard to see in this light, but if you want to see, there's my tail pulling through. So there's my hole, there's my tail through it. So I'm going on to my next one. There's my next one. And then, there we go. And you can try to pick them up again. You could identify your little guys and just pick them up straight onto this needle. I find, again, I tend to split the plies. This one's split here. I don't know if you can see that. A little more when I do it this way. This one's pretty good. And I also find that if I do that, then I do what I just did here, which is just knit that and not knit it together with the next stitches. Because my brain's just ready to go on with the knitting. So I do find that I like doing it this way better. But if that works for you, by all means go ahead and do it. It is a little bit faster because you're not constantly dealing with the other implement. Do what works best for you, because it should be fun and it isn't hard to do, just takes a little bit of time and attention. Nothing in this pattern is hard, it's all just stuff that takes a little bit of time in some cases and a little bit of attention to do, and then you'll be off to the races. So there we go. So if we flip this over, now you can see what this looks like. So here's what the inside is going to look like. It's going to be nice and flat, and my stockinette's there, and then you have this really nice firm edge here for having picked up your hem. This will then be the bottom of the cuff. On the inside of the cuff, you could always, you know, either do an iron-on of like a label with your, you know, handmade with love, or the date and the name of who it's for. You do a little embroidery in there with your initials. You could put the name of the person who's going to use the stocking in there if it's a gift for someone, or if it's meant to be used by just one person, not, you know, just a decoration kind of thing. And yeah, so that's how the hem works. It's nice and easy to do, and once it's completed, basically at the end you just make sure your tail is tucked in, and on the last stitch you're basically just going to pull this guy through, and he's not gonna, and all you're going to do is see that, and then you'll be able to start knitting again in stranded without having to break the red. And then all of that that'll be what it looks like at the top. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And thanks for joining me. See you next time.